funny thing about these quirks, like something I never really got to follow up with you on, is like when we did that 80s shred collab thing, and like I never got to talk about like what was going on my end when I was trying to like get that video out.
I heard you like went to bed and something was bothering you, so you woke up and redid it or something?
Oh, no, that was something recent. It was one from like 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I was doing the solo from Come On Feel the Noise.
That's right. Quite right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and I picked that one. I'm like, oh, yeah, I know that. And it's got that crazy run at the beginning, at the end. I'm like, I can handle that.
Yeah.
I'll just, I got to practice it a lot. It was pretty fast, and I wanted it to be clean. And I was really confident about it. And I was just practicing it, and I'm like, okay, I got it. I can do this. And then you sent the backing track.
Yeah.
And you said, be sure to wear headphones when you record it. And I was like, wait, what? And I went back and looked at the previous one. Mm-hmm. Nobody was wearing headphones. And I was like, and I went to Alyssa. I said, I think I just learned something interesting about these YouTubers and these bigger channels. I didn't realize that they were overdubbing themselves. I'm like, they're not wearing headphones, so they must have recorded it, and then they do the video separate. Well, that makes sense. Okay, for some reason he wants me to have the headphones on, maybe because he wants to make sure I'm really like locked into his track or something.
That's weird. Yeah, I'd have to really think about why I said that, but it turned out. But was it a tougher solo than you thought?
No, that's where it got crazy.
Yeah.
Because I had recorded the audio. I'd had it down, did the audio. And I'm like, oh, that sounds perfect. I'm like, okay, I'll do the video tomorrow. That's a no-brainer,
Yeah.
Because I've already got the audio anyway. I'll feel confident. And I messaged you and said, yeah, I've got it done. I'll have it for you tomorrow. And you said, okay, cool. And I'm like, yeah, I just got to do the video tomorrow. And you messaged back and said, whoa, wait a minute. Did you do the audio?
This all makes sense now.
Separate?
Okay.
And I was like, yeah. I'm like, because I think I said I want to put on a good face or something. Like I didn't want to have headphones on.
So you were literally gonna like finger sync to what you already recorded.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna sit there and pretend to play. I was gonna play it.
Yeah.
But the audio you'd be hearing would have been the one that I recorded with headphones on.
Sure. Okay.
And I was just doing what I thought I was told to do. And so then when you were like, no, we don't do it like that on this channel, I was like, oh no. And I'm like, oh no, I'll just redo it.
We got to raw dog this thing. Yeah.
So I'm like, no, that's fine. I'll just redo it. But what happened is I got in my own head then. And I was at my one of my studios, one in Ramsey, and I was like, started playing it, and all of a sudden in my head I was like, man, Mike's channel is kind of a big deal. He's put a lot of work into it. You almost just totally like wrecked this.
I wouldn't worry. I think you overthought it maybe a little bit.
I totally did. It wasn't like you put a bunch of pressure on me, but I was like, wow, was that a rookie mistake or what?
Yeah, but you kind of were a rookie at doing this sort of thing, right, for a YouTube channel. So it's cool that's what my nephew's going through right now. Like he'll put up a video and I'll go, Jaden, your microphone sounds like really bad. Like all I hear is the low end. And he's like, okay, cool, I'll fix it. So after like 10 of his videos, he's finally like, I can't complain about anything now because he keeps fixing little details. And that's really what we all have to do when we start on this crazy journey. I've seen videos where people are shredding and then you could tell they're not really playing what you're hearing. And I hate that sort of, I call it finger syncing, like lip syncing, because it'd be way easier if I could spend all day just getting the perfect takes and overdubbing and then doing the video. That'd be so easy. But I always love the challenge of like, man, just do it in the one take and see what happens. And you did it though. But how many takes did it take, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, it was just it pushed it back like about a whole week.
Wow.
Because I got in my head, I couldn't play it anymore.
Yeah.
I think the tempo was like 132. And I kept playing with a metronome, and all of a sudden I was back down to like 90.
Okay.
And then I kept trying to push it, but it was like this overwhelming red light syndrome.
Yeah. Recently, because I did an interview with this girl named Emily, and one of her videos just took off huge. It got like 400,000 views in like a week. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. It'd be really cool to interview somebody who's just like suddenly spiking on YouTube.
I watched that.
Yeah. She's really into like 80s hair metal. I thought that's really cool. That's kind of why I was intrigued, because I'm like, not a lot of people her age are listening to old man hair metal like we like or whatever. Or like I don't know if you're more into the metal. But
Oh, no,
we all grew up with
yeah.
Rat and Doc and all that. But then I thought, I did a lot, because she asked me about, the stuff I like, but it's like, I did a lot of 80s hair metal stuff. In fact, I did a 3-part series where we just did all solos, and then I remembered it. And I watched the first one, and I'm like, that was pretty fun and actually a lot of work. Everybody who did it, they put in a ton of time. And I had to learn like 50 solos. It was really crazy to do all those backing tracks for it. But I thought, it's worth putting it out again. So I put it back on Facebook, and I boosted it. And it got like over 1,000 views in one day. And people are like, oh, this is cool. I'm like, see, just because you did something in the past doesn't mean it disappears, even though it feels like it. Like, can you remember your 4th video? Or does it feel like it's just gone?
There are videos on my channel, and I've gone back and looked just to see if I missed a comment or something.
Yeah.
And I've seen so many, like this popped up about a couple years ago. I suddenly realized I had a video that was close to 1,000 views. It was about a 6-minute video explaining ledger lines.
I think I saw that towards the top of your popular videos.
Yeah, it's my second most popular video.
Yeah.
And there are all these people saying, thank you, this is so helpful. And I'm like, I don't even remember making it.
That's cool.
And I watched it, and I'm like, yeah, it's good. I don't remember making this. That's me. But
I feel like if YouTube wanted to make any video big, they could. They just choose one of your videos, promote it. Whenever you go to your YouTube page and it's like the same people keep popping up in the very front.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, if they did that with anybody's videos, I bet you they could get them up to, 1,000 subscribers overnight. Maybe not that fast, but it's really a weird algorithm, and it's hard to figure out.
Well, you remember I did a video. It was my first video that got 1,000 views.
Oh, was that recent?
Yeah, it was like 6 months ago.
Okay, yeah.
And that was cool because when I first started doing YouTube videos, it was like I would do a video, I'd work really hard on it. On average, they take about 4 hours to do, which I know you put way more time in yours, but I'm
not always.
Okay, well, for me, that's about all I can give to it.
Yeah.
Just because I try to wrap them up in one sitting.
You don't want to like prolong them too much, because it's like things go weird when you prolong videos. I don't know if you've ever done a video over the span of a week, and you're on your computer and you're making room, and all of a sudden you're like, did I just throw away the video file? Like I've trashed video files before. I'm like, I wasn't done with that video. I have to start over. So is that why you do it so fast, or is it because you want to hit the inspiration while it hits?
It's that, like, just want it to be done and move on to the next one.
Yeah.
It's not my career. I have to focus on my teaching and my band and stuff like that.
Sure.
But I do want to make time for it. But I've like, okay, I just got to, try to wrap this up early in the day. I'm like, start in the morning. It's not my favorite time to do them. I'd much rather be making them like at this time at night.
The creative hours.
Yeah, and I'm a lot, just a lot more relaxed at this time. But I don't have that luxury right now. I'm just really busy with teaching and my band and stuff. But when I first started, I wasn't expecting a bunch of views. I was just making them, just putting them out there, and I was happy if I got like 20 views.
Yeah, double digits.
Yeah, I was just like 20 views on that, and I wasn't really paying that close of attention. I wasn't watching it because there wasn't anything to watch. And watching the numbers go up.
Yeah,
but I would just be happy to see. I would get a comment or something like that, and I was just excited to be making them. Well, then the whole thing went on hiatus when I went through that nasty divorce back in 2019.
Was it 2019?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, right before all the crazy COVID stuff.
Oh yeah, I was just like right when the COVID stuff happened. I had rebuilt myself and got my mental health stabilized. Not that I had become unstable, but I was going through some really tough times.
You had to get back on your feet.
Well, it was, and I don't know, some people take this, but I went through a massive spiritual awakening. And it was like I went from, wow, I'm losing my house, I'm losing my wife. This is awful, to where I was like, I'm losing all these things that weren't serving me, and I feel so good now. And so I was in this really good place, and then COVID happened, and I was like, God, this is just like rain on a guy that's already wet.
Yeah, talk about piling on. When the shit hits the fan, it's just crazy how it could all come at one time, and you're just like, what did I do?
Yeah.
But you're right, that maybe you felt the weight falling off, because they say, like, when you have a spiritual awakening, like for me, it was around the worst pain I ever experienced. It's like you could either go down with ship or float. It's like, I don't know, it's like let go or be dragged. So if you let go, which you almost are forced to do because it's all being taken away anyway, suddenly you stop reaching for it and you just like feel this inner peace. It's the weirdest feeling.
I like the way you worded that. I mean, that's very well put. I agree. That was definitely my experience. The way I was thinking of it at the time, I think it was Winston Churchill said, if you find yourself in hell, keep walking.
Yeah. Yep.
And it made sense because I'm like, yeah, I don't want to go back from the way I came because that's how I got here in the first place.
I've already learned that lesson.
But so anyway, yeah, I had to put my channel on hiatus because I was running it out of one of the rooms in my house that was now being sold.
Okay.
And so I couldn't have all this equipment up. So it's just done. I didn't even have the energy to do it anyway. But that's what I was used to is I think I had a video that maybe had 60 views or something. I'm like, whatever, I'll get back to this. Well, it wasn't until a year later I started making videos again. I was really excited to get back to it. It was crazy how fast a year went by. I'm like, it's been a year since I've done one of these things.
Yeah.
But I remember then I had a whole new view on it. I was looking back at the old ones and I'm like, I feel like I was making videos like I felt they were like compulsory. Mm-hmm. Like I have to make this video. Like I'm like, I'm going to kind of go on a journey with my subscribers where I'm new at making videos and they'll be new at guitar because then the videos will be about like the absolute beginner kind of stuff.
From the ground up.
Yeah. And so I was like, so we're all beginners and growing together was kind of the way I just wanted to do it. But I then, once I was going to reboot it, I looked at them and I'm like, I'm kind of bored with making videos where I want to talk about maybe a cool Randy Rhoads lick, but I'm just like, I want to just go off and be like, this lick is awesome because of this, and check this out, and I love this, and I learned this, and this is why I loved it, and when I was in 7th grade or whatever, just my personal experience with, say, a Randy Rhoads lick, for example.
Your excitement for it, enthusiasm.
Yeah, but I felt like the energy on the videos were dipping when I'd be like, I love this lick, and I'm like, play it, and they'd be like, okay, so here's how you play it. And there's a tab on the screen, like, put your first finger on the 12th fret, and it bogged it down. It's like, I'm like, what part of this video do I like the best? I'm like, it's the one where I'm just talking about something that I like.
Yeah.
Like, if people want me to explain things, I will. Mm-hmm. But I did like one, it was called The Creepiest Melodies, and I did it around Halloween. And I remember I put it out and I looked at it later. I'm like, I would have liked this video a lot more if I didn't explain how to play the riffs.
Yeah.
Just played them. Just went through the list and played them and then called it.
Yep.
But instead the video was twice as long and I'm explaining it. Well, the only redeeming thing about that was when I had students showing up for their lessons and they're suddenly playing Peer Gant or the theme to Halloween. And I'm like, hey, where'd you learn that? And they're like, on your channel.
From you. From the virtual you.
Right, and so that was cool. But anyway, I decided though, I'm like, I do think that my storytelling ability is a lot more fun for my channel. I think that's something that I'm good at, and I like doing that. And of course it's going to have to do with guitar. That's my passion. But I kind of went away from it being like super instructional to just like, I'm a musician and here's some weird stuff I've done. And
that's what might keep you going through everything, because as AI gets more intelligent and takes over everything, all we have left are like our stories and our experiences that we could relay. Anybody can teach how to play Crazy Train riff. I realize this too. I'm like, I can't spend all my energy saying now play this riff and show the tabs, because a robot could do that, or someone could just look up a million videos and learn how to play Crazy Train. But it's like, what was the first time you heard Crazy Train? Was there something weird happening? Is there something relatable to other people? And is it it's usually inspirational because it got you to where you are now. I think people want to hear those stories, even though, I've been accused of talking way too much, but I don't care, because I have that feeling you have where I got to get it out. I want to share all the awesome things music brought to me. And sometimes that's through playing a song. Sometimes it's through a story. But what was your recent one where you're talking about like the song? And it did really well, actually.
I tried to start a series. Well, I did start a series 2 years ago where I made a video, and it's a really pivotal part in my childhood, because I'm sure you can relate. When you're growing up, like, your music was your armor.
Yeah.
And
your best friend sometimes.
Yeah, it was my identity. And but I got into the first video. It was about this band called In Destroy. But I spent about the first 5 to 10 minutes of the video explaining how when I grew up, I had this collection of metal that was really rare. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I had it is because I had an older brother. He's about 2 years older than me. And because we're kind of close in age, but he was a little bit older, we were into the same things, getting into the same things at the same time. And he was into sports. I wasn't. I was into drawing and stuff. But then he got into music at the same time as me. But he was 2 steps ahead of me. I mean, older brothers usually are. But he has this rule where we can't be into the same things.
Really?
Sorry, I bumped your microphone.
That's okay.
Yeah, like when Star Wars came out, we saw it. And when we were kids, I was like 4, and he was like 6 or 7. And then he starts collecting the action figures. I can't. So I had to. So it was Battlestar Galactica for me, you know.
So you had Transformers. You had to have GoBots.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
What a weird rule. Why? So you don't steal his stuff, or so he's the only one?
I think he just didn't want us to seem too closely related. He wanted us to be different, just have different interests. Like, don't copy me. I wasn't copying him, but I got into music anyway. So, like I said, he was 2 steps ahead of me on this game, where he's got like he collected like Motley Crue and Aerosmith and all these big bands, AC/DC. Mm-hmm. But the first one he let me have because he didn't really care for him that much was Iron Maiden.
Oh wow!
And so that was my first love of music was Iron Maiden.
That's rare because usually people just want to keep the albums for the art. Like the artwork is so cool, you know.
Yeah, it didn't interest him much. So I'm glad I got that one because that was the thing that really like lit a fire in me. But then when I went out looking for more music, all that mainstream stuff, he had claimed it. So I would go to these record stores where they'd have this one like row of tapes, just weird stuff that nobody was talking about. And that was what I would buy. And so
what was the row called? Was it like a category, like rare metal or something?
It was weird because it would say imported.
Oh, okay.
But a lot of it wasn't imported, but it just said that.
It makes you feel cooler if you buy an imported album, maybe.
Right. Well, and I did have some, but so I was making a video about this and talking about like this was kind of a interesting thing that shaped my childhood and my exploration into metal. That everybody else is like, Motley Crue and Poison, and I'm like, In Destroy and Odin, and they're like, who's that?
Odin, yeah. I heard Odin on a sampler one time and thought they're pretty intense.
Yeah.
So you were into like the real scary stuff a little bit.
Well, yeah, with Iron Maiden being my first love, like I remember at first trying to understand like, how is Iron Maiden metal and so is Poison?
Yeah.
I was like, they're very different.
It's very different if you sit and listen to them, and it's weird to like clump them into a category like that for sure. So you went almost indie metal in a weird way. Like
you could call it underground.
Yeah, a little more obscure to where you bring it up and, obviously people in junior high are going to look at you funny, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I made, it was a couple of years ago, I made my first video based on this, told the story about like how I had this collection. And my last video in the series will be talking about how I lost this collection. I do no longer have it. It's a tragic story.
What did it all go up in fire? Like up in flames?
Well, I didn't know for many, many years. All I knew is that my parents took it away from me.
Oh,
they found an album that the lyrics were very questionable.
Did they actually read the inside? Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And I'm going to talk about that album on that actual video, but I'll have to do a disclaimer. Like, I'm not saying go and listen to it. You can find this album. It's rare. Like I said, you can find it on like eBay for like $100 or something. But
it's funny. You have an older mindset like me where you want to warn people, but then you got to realize what people are seeing on the internet every single day now. But for us, we had shocking things. Like, what was the first album cover, just a little off to the side here, but that shocked you actually, where you couldn't stop thinking about it? Like, oh, that was rough. That was freaking rough.
That's a good question. Yeah, an album cover that I just thought was like really shocking.
Yeah.
Probably the original artwork for Appetite for Destruction.
Really? Oh, with the cartoon lady?
Yeah, that was the original artwork, and I remember looking at that. I'm like, what is?
Yeah, first it's a naked girl. Like, what happened to her? And then there's some like lobster robot or something, right?
This is like a robot that looked like it was the press, or maybe she was the press.
Oh, yeah, you're right. There's like a press thing. And like she's like, okay, yeah, I'll put up a visual, but it'll be censored on the screen.
Well, in my video, I was just talking about the artwork for In Destroy was very strange. I still don't know what it was, and I said that right in my video. I don't know what it is. I wasn't making fun of it. I make a point of not saying anything negative, or poking fun. It's just I thought that album was really cool. But yeah, so I did that video, and so this, we're going down this whole choo-choo train. But what you asked is like my latest video was a second installment on that. I probably got about 5 I want to make.
Cool.
But the most recent one I did was the CJSS one, where Dave Chastain's not an unknown at all. But this band, a lot of people, they don't know.
It's true. Yeah, Chastain used to be all over the guitar magazines when I was growing up. It's like, this guy must be legit. And you could tell, it was like kind of proggy a little bit, right?
I never thought of it that way. When I think of Dave Chastain, I hear a lot of natural minor scale runs.
Yeah.
a lot of that. A lot of kind of Maiden stuff.
Yep. I guess the term proggy gets thrown around a lot, but I always thought if a band is based around like solos and real great players, I always call it prog, even though it usually, it isn't always the case. But I was really impressed with what I heard in that video. Sounds like a great band.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, kind of jumping around on I don't expect to just talk about my channel this whole time.
No, but I want to definitely put the channel name and everything up. It's funny because the last video I did with Emily, it's funny because it's called RIFFIN. We're just talking, like if we're just hanging out right now, this is what we'd be doing.
I know. I'd say most of this conversation, I'm forgetting that we're even on camera.
Exactly. It's like after we got done teaching, like you talked about back of the old space, actually a few spaces now, and Schmidt too. We'd get done and everyone's heading out the door and we just get in this conversation. We just wanted to, talk about stuff for a while. We related so well because we both did the same thing, just teaching at Schmidt, private lessons and all that. Those were crazy days. I literally just talked to somebody from Schmidt today from the old lesson office. And I just remember how wild those days were. Just Schmidt, Brooklyn Center, all the people that work there, Slim Dunlop from the Replacements worked there, Tony Zaccardi. It's like all these people that were in the business. I just realized it was really like a peak time for a while there to be teaching because it was like we were all getting new students a lot. And then when I started my new policies, they seemed to really help me out. Like when I started just offering the first lesson free. And I think that's the key for me, at least, is like, get them in. It's like a drug dealer. Just give them a little bit and I'll come back. No, show them that taking guitar lessons doesn't have to be freaky. Like when you're a kid and you hear, I'm going to go take lessons with some guy, and it sounds kind of scary, but if you show them, you're just you're just a fan of music that want to show people how to play it, and you have a good personality. I think you have whatever that secret thing is in your personality that just keeps people coming through the door, Whatever it is you have, I think I somehow developed it over a decade at Schmidt, just face-to-face with each student. You learn how to teach each person, and you're flexible. I think you're flexible with your approach. Like if somebody comes in and they like, back in the day, they would say, oh, I like Nirvana. Then you have the Nirvana mindset, and you could probably teach them Nirvana songs while still showing them things they need to know fundamentally. Is that how you kind of operate?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sorry if I go into like story mode here.
Go ahead. Yeah, we're both like storytellers, so this might get long-winded, but I don't care.
So I took my first teaching position. It was in 1999, and I had taught before. I used to teach religion. I used to teach the Bible. And anyway,
yeah, you have a whole backstory with like religion and stuff.
Yeah, and so I had developed a teaching persona, if there's such a thing, or just knowing how to draw people out and explain things, break things down. I knew that I had a gift for teaching, and I decided I wanted to become a music teacher, and I think I gave myself like 3 years or something to like get there, and it actually happened in 2.
Okay,
which was really cool. I just got a phone call. It was this woman that was opening up her own music school, and said that my name came. I came highly recommended. I'm like, I've never done this before.
Wow, they came to you actually?
Yeah.
Did somebody from like your church circle or whatever get a hold of her? Or was that like a religious?
No, it was my teacher.
Oh, okay.
She called him because she knew he knew his stuff and said,
"Oh, nice.
Can you recommend any of your students? Because I want the real deal. I don't want just somebody off the streets coming and applying and." Their only credentials are like, oh, I went to music tech or something. Not that there's anything wrong with music tech, but
sure.
She's like, I want somebody to be able to vouch for this person. And he's like, this guy.
That's the power of recommendations. You learn that from, when you teach one person and they tell their friend and they tell their friend, it could be your whole business is based off of referrals.
Yeah. So I was new. And the truth is, at this point in my life, I was focused mainly on classical and jazz.
Yep.
Although I started on metal, I hadn't been playing metal. I wasn't in a metal band at the time. And
It's hard to believe.
I just kind of got this vision in my head that I would be this teacher that taught everything that I had been studying super hardcore for the past 5 years. And I take this job, and I'm the only guitar instructor there. They had violin and piano and everything else, but I was the guitar guy. And all my students were all these teenagers with electric guitars that wanted to play Korn and Deftones.
That's right, late 90s, yeah.
Yep, Green Day, Sum 41. Anyway, I was like, I can do this, but I don't know that I want to. Because I was just in this weird, I don't mind admitting, like, I started out kind of a snob, sort of a music snob. I've worked through a lot over those years, like those early years especially, about getting back into what got me started on it. But this is the important part of the story. I'm going off on all these tangents, but...
When you say snob, do you mean you were a snob when you got into classical, or were you a metal snob?
Oh, I was definitely a metal snob when I was doing metal. Then I got into classical, and then I was a classical snob.
Because of all your imported metal, that's why. If you would have been a Poison fan, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah,
no, I'm just kidding.
It's I don't mind admitting that I went through that, because it's like it's made me the person I am now that I like
It's
a
good
lot.
it's good that you can admit it. A lot of people can't. You know, they're pretentious till the day they die. You know.
No, but I just for some reason was like, oh yeah, you know, I played Crazy Train and Iron Man. That's kid stuff, you know. Now we need to move on to Bach.
Yeah.
And
Evolve, kids.
so here I was with my first handful of students. I maybe had about 15 right off the bat, which is cool. And
It's a good amount to start with.
yeah, and it was I seemed to be clicking with the students, and there was positive feedback coming through. But every student that came through, I was giving them either the option to kind of do that Mel Bay approach, where you learn your basic chords and like just some single note reading stuff.
Yep. Page
Or
by page.
I had this book that was the size of a phone book for a small town that was classical, and you had to learn all the notation, you had to learn counterpoint, the technique, all of this, and by the end of the book, you're playing Bach and Albanese and all this stuff, and I'm thinking, this is the book I want to try to sell all my students on.
So you were like the teacher on Whiplash. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
that was
a very good comparison. Kind of, I wasn't mean like that guy, but I was taking it way too seriously.
We all go down that road a little bit, but then we realize we're not that guy, I think. We realize it's better to let people enjoy music instead of trying to have one master student, maybe.
So this was a pivotal thing. I like telling this story. I've shared it with a lot of students because this is on the idea about the flexibility and being adaptable. I was not that
Yeah.
at all. And I had this student, she was 14. I even know her name, but I won't say it so you don't have to edit it out or anything like that. But she comes to her lesson, you know, she starts and right away she sees the tattoos in my style. And it's just like, okay, yeah, this guy's cool. Well, she had a classical guitar. It, to me, is a no-brainer. We're going to do Bach.
Wow.
And so we did a couple lessons. I'm teaching her how to read. I'm teaching her proper finger picking technique. And then by her third lesson, so this is like my third week of teaching, she comes to me and she's like, listen, I don't want to quit, but I kind of do, but I don't, because it's just this music that you're teaching me is really boring. And she's like, and I look at you and I know you know Metallica, but you're not teaching me Metallica. I'm like, well, you're on a classical. We can't play Metallica on that. Like, here again, I was like really limiting.
She's like, you're holding back. I know you're crazy inside.
Yeah, that was basically what she was saying. And I'm like, all of a sudden it hit me. I'm like, why am I making these dumb rules? And I'm like, yeah, of course we can play Metallica on that. It's the only guitar you've got. That's what I would have done.
Yeah.
When I was first playing, I would have played it on anything.
Yep.
And so I'm like, oh, you're right. Okay, fine. And I tabbed out Enter Sandman. And I'm like, here you go. And she was super happy, and she remained my student for a couple of years.
Nice.
And I've always looked back on that. It was a pivotal moment in teaching where all of a sudden I realized I have to be adaptable and flexible, but also fun, and not forget my roots and what got me excited about it. And I also I'm not in touch with that student anymore, but I thought that is like the most loving thing somebody could have done for me early on in my career. My career might have never taken off as a teacher had she not helped redirect me.
Yeah.
And I've even said this to people where they're like, oh, I went to this restaurant and my burger was cold. I'm never going back. And I'm like, actually, why don't you just go back one more time and tell them the last time I was here, my burger was cold. I'm giving you another shot.
Yeah.
Can you get it right? Because then it helps that business.
Definitely. Instead of just going off and leaving a negative Yelp review and ruining their business. Well, what's cool is if you think about the irony of the student teaching the teacher in a way. But that's how we learn. It's like we need the feedback sometimes. That's why I get weird with teachers that are so by the book all the time and they never stray from it. It's like, you know, you might be sucking the joy out of music, even though you're trying to create this, I don't know, just this high-level student. I think you're going to have very few of those. You might have some really great students, but a lot of them are going to quit hating music. Or they're going to quit because now they hate music. You figuring out the fact that being flexible was the key might be the reason why you're still doing it to this day.
It made it more fun for me, too.
Right.
Because the really cool thing about it was I got back into metal.
Yeah.
When I started like encouraging students to just bring whatever in.
Was it because you felt like it opened a channel again in your brain?
I had an electric guitar at home. It was an Ibanez Sabre, and that case had not been opened in years. I had not played electric guitar in years.
Wow.
And I got it out and restrung it and started playing metal again, and then started to feel like I missed a lot. Because like when I played metal, I was self-taught. Quit playing metal, then got a teacher and learned classical and jazz and got pretty advanced with that. But it was like it showed me all this stuff that I had bypassed. Like, wow, I was really a hack. Well, then when I was like, well, okay, I'm going to go back into metal, that stuff, that's kindergarten. And I started to really examine it. I'm like, no, it's the same thing with metal. Like, I missed a lot.
Yeah, there's levels to everything, it seems like.
Yeah, and I started woodshedding it with that, and I got really into it. Next thing you know, I was on a stage again playing in metal bands.
Feeling that adrenaline rush again.
Been doing it, yeah, and just, I love metal. And this goes way back. This is in 1999. So
I remember those days. I mean, I'll insert like clips of your band Beastface if that's cool. Mm-hmm. But before that, you were in a few other bands, right? Like I know one in particular that I don't know if it didn't end well or what happened, but
you might be thinking of Killing Grace.
Yeah,
Killing Grace. Yeah, it was the first metal band that I was in that I started. I was really excited about it because I had played with some other people but didn't work out long term. But I really liked being on the stage and started to realize, like, since guitar players are a dime a dozen, if you want to have any staying power in a band, then it's got to be your band.
Yeah, that's true. That way they can't fire you.
Right.
Although it has happened.
So it was me and my childhood friend. He was a tattoo artist, but insanely talented. Wanted to start a band with me, even though he had no musical background. I believed in his artistic ability so much that I'm like, I'll bet he could do it.
Yeah, he'll figure it out.
He did. He was writing amazing lyrics, and at first his vocals needed a lot of work.
Yeah.
But we kept working at it for about 6 months. We were writing together, and he just kept getting better and better. So eventually he sounded like Max Cavalera.
Wow.
And he was writing these really profound lyrics. Well, then we had to round up some more people, and we got this whole band together. But
Was
he
it
was
a 4-piece or a 5-piece band?
5.
Oh, geez.
So it was. We got like this guitar. Did you remember No Man's Land?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was. Can I say their name?
Yeah.
Sarah Lawson.
Oh, that's so cool. No Man's Land's huge in Minneapolis, or they were.
Yep. Well, yeah, she was my girlfriend growing up.
That's so crazy.
And so
We played a show with them once.
Oh, yeah. I figured.
Yeah.
I knew you must have knew who
They
they
were
were.
on like the bill. We didn't play like right before them or anything, but I think it was a Metal Massacre maybe or something. I'm not sure, but
Well, she went on to play in another band called Hot Carl.
yeah, no, Hard
And
Carl.
then Sugar Freak.
Okay, I don't know that name.
Well, I don't think that one lasted very long. She wasn't real happy with it.
Yeah.
But my buddy, he said he knew that she was still playing around. He's like, should we go see her play? And we saw her play at the Uptown with this band. And we're just like, yeah, me and Aries, man, we're starting a metal band. You in? She's like, yeah.
Nice.
It's like, I think she just kind of remembered us from back in the day. Like together, we were like this power team. And we had a bass player. He was a guy that worked in the shop that my buddy owned, the tattoo shop. He was really connected. Tattoo artists tend to be.
Yeah, they have their own like community, right?
Yeah, and so this is kind of wild, though, that you brought that band up. We started auditioning drummers. The drummer that wound up making it is the drummer that's in Beastface. Him and I have been working together ever since.
Nice.
But yeah, that band, it was crazy because we did our first show at 7th Street Entry, and it was packed. I mean, packed. Like, you know that show where people are just like,
you got to
like
fight
sardines?
to get to the bathroom.
Yeah, it was wild, and I'm like, I know this isn't the way it always works. Like,
This is too easy.
yeah, it was just, but it was promoted really well, and they're just people in the band, you know, like the singer and the guitarist were connected, so it was just like, you know, it was like all the Pretty Horses were there.
Nice.
The guys from Devil Inside. There were these like names that were there, and then right away we get the manager for all the Pretty Horses says, I want to manage you guys.
Wow.
And so then he booked our next show opening for all the Pretty Horses at 7th Street.
Wow.
And
So what happened fast for you guys?
Yeah, it was packed again.
Yeah.
And then I remember we played the Turf Club not long after that, opening up for Banehinge. And all of a sudden I get off stage and a friend of mine says, yeah, American Head Charge is here and they want to talk to you.
Wow.
I'm like, American Head Charge? I
That's
was like, I just kind of got goosebumps remembering that because they're one of my all-time favorite
They
metal
were like,
bands.
they were the biggest deal in Minneapolis, and then they went national. And they work with Rick Rubin, I believe.
Yeah.
And then they broke up. But whatever. They had such a huge following in Minneapolis. It's insane. So yeah, you were associated with that Head Charge, Black Diesel kind of circle. Okay.
Yeah, they were there.
Black Flood Diesel, sorry.
They were there, and I was like, I'm glad I found that out after we played the show.
Yeah.
Because I remember it was one of our better shows, one of my better shows. I was finally getting into my groove, and I wasn't getting tremors or feeling nervous, and I was just into it.
Yeah.
And they really liked us, and they approached us and said, we're doing a kickoff show on Cameron's birthday. It was his 28th birthday at First Ave's main room, and we want you guys to open up.
Damn.
And I was just like, I can't believe this is happening so quick.
This is at the Turf Club that you found this out?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so we played it. Yeah, it was a sold-out First Ave show, 2,000 people. I'd never seen that many people, you know. And
Especially all standing there watching you play. Did you have the whole screen going up experience?
I was just thinking about
Yeah.
that because we're behind the screen, and I made a pre-recorded intro for the thing to play.
Nice.
And that was going, and I remember just standing there going like, oh, the bass is way too heavy on this. Oh, I should have done this different. And I'm like, Brandon, focus.
Yep.
Biggest show of your life right now, man. And all I see is like the bottom of the screen and like hands. There's people right up against the stage.
That's such
And the screen starts to go up. And I just see people, more people. And all of a sudden it's like, it goes all the way out there. And then I looked up and all around.
even the VIP area and
It
all
was
the bars up
all
there.
these
Yeah.
people. And all of a sudden I was just like froze. But then I looked out and I was like, whoa, there are a lot of people out there that are wearing our shirt.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, all right, everything's going to be all right.
Yeah.
And everything wasn't. I played pretty terrible that night.
Well, you might have just been starstruck by everything going on around you, you know.
It was an
Or
intense
awestruck.
experience, but that was about the peak. And then after that, yes, it just crashed and burned overnight. It just ended like that. It was
That can happen. As fast as it starts, it can end, you know. That sucks.
yeah, it was cool. I'm glad I got that experience. Beastface was definitely a whole different climb. It was not a band that started out where we just had a bunch of crazy connections.
Yeah.
Like I liked working with a singer from Killing Grace, but like I said, he had no musical background. The singer for Beastface, Chris, he's extremely musically talented.
Yeah.
He plays drums and bass, and he can sing. He plays guitar. He played trumpet. Like, he knows music. Does he own a tattoo shop and is super connected?
Yeah, there's always a trade-off.
No, so Beastface, you know, we've got a decent following now, and we're really well known in our own local scene. That took a lot of time.
Yeah.
We were that band that was playing shows with bands that we didn't necessarily bill well with because it might be like a gospel blues band or something. That literally happened.
And now Beastface.
Right.
That's
And,
crazy.
You know, and then it's just like by the time we're playing, it's just like two people in, you know, like in the bartenders.
Been there for sure. It's funny because my old band had a fast rise, but then we sort of like simmered and we had to do the work after that. But yeah, I know that feeling. So you built it up kind of grassroots, and now it's to the point where I always thought with your band, you guys have to just survive all the trends until it comes back to that like rootsy 90s metal vibe for some reason. When I hear the vocals for your band, I just hear like vintage sort of alt metal, if I can say that. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? It's just a different sounding band. Like nowadays, it seems like a lot of people have a similar sound. You guys actually have your own unique sound because you lasted all these years. How many years has it been now?
Well, we pretty much just say officially we started in 2010 because that's when Dave Lineski joined.
Yep.
And up until that point, we hadn't released anything. We had like a MySpace page.
Wow, that's a long time though.
Right, but we had like a couple of years before that where it was in its early stages. It was called Iron Sharpens Iron at first, and a lot of what it was is I just took Killing Grace songs and had Chris redo vocals. But I started to get into a whole different mindset, and I started writing differently. And then I didn't want to sound like Killing Grace at all anymore. I had a different perspective, and started writing new stuff, and so by the time we were just getting rid of these like revised Killing Grace songs, and we'd gone through a couple lineup changes with the bass player, then we got Dave Lineski, and now we were jumping on these new ideas for tunes that I had, and so what we did is we got together, and Dave became the bass player, and we recorded all these songs that we've been playing. A couple of new ones I wrote. There's a couple of reworked Killing Grace songs in there. Released an album. It wasn't recorded or mixed real well. I worked really hard on it. I did it in my basement.
What program did you use?
Huh?
What program?
Nuendo.
Nuendo. I use that.
I have Nuendo just by default because I was doing a lot of movie soundtracks at the time.
It was good for that.
Yeah, and I needed that. But otherwise, it was a decent audio sequencer.
Is it still around?
Yeah, I still use it, but I mean, Cubase, Steinberg is still a company.
All these old names, man. We used to use Paris at the studio, but Nuendo, I use so much. Digital Performer, all these things, you know. So
and what do you use? Pro Tools?
Pro Tools now, yeah. I'm just so used to it. And Chris, he taught me everything. You know, Chris Blood, he taught me everything I know about it, and he's like a pro, so I stick with it. But nowadays, Logic is really good for a lot of things, I guess. You use PC
I might
stuff?
change one day. I don't know. I'm just kind of stuck with the old stuff.
If you're used to it and it works, do it for sure.
But I'd recorded this first album like that, and one of the things that didn't work out so well is I mic'd my amp. Is a Mesa triple rectifier, and every time, even before with Killing Grace, we'd go into like a professional studio and they'd mic it. It never sounded like my guitar tone.
Weird. Is that why you went for what do you use now? Helix or something?
Oh, I'm using the same rig still.
Okay.
But I didn't like the guitar tone, and then trying to get the drums to blend, and there were a lot of problems, and it was what it was. Like it's decent, but we got so much better by the second album. It was called Return of Beastface, and by that album, it was all stuff that pretty much divorced itself from the Killing Grace past and all that.
Got it.
And Dave Lineski was the bass player throughout all that writing.
Yeah.
And so we released the first album kind of quick when he joined. It was like 2010, like that's when we officially started. And then when we Return of Beastface, I felt like that's when we really found our true voice. But it keeps changing because we did that EP a couple of years ago that is a little bit different. And Chris now is our main sound engineer.
Okay.
He piggybacked me when we did the first two albums and figured out all my tricks. I was probably maybe a one-trick pony at the time or something, but learned what I knew. And then he just went to town, like researching. And now we're actually doing recordings right at our own at our own rehearsal space.
That's good, man.
And they actually sound better than anything else we've released.
Yeah.
He's got the whole place wired for sound, and he just records us doing practices and running through new material. And like 2 days later, I'm getting mixes in my email box. I'm like, we could put this on Spotify.
Yeah. It's not like the old days where we have, you know, a Tascam 4-track that we hopefully can, you know, somehow
Fostex?
yeah, Fostex that somehow, you know, you get like you might as well just use a tape recorder at that point, you know. But nowadays with the technology, it's crazy. People are recording our live shows with digital boards, and they send me the tracks and I put it in Pro Tools. I can mix it like a real live album. It's so insane to have this much flexibility in what you could do sound wise. So yeah, I think when Dave, it was so weird, the story of Dave. Maybe we should mention that he's my bass student for a long time. And then I don't know if, was it a just recommendation? Like I heard you guys were looking for a bass player. And I just brought it up. I forgot how it actually happened, but how did he become your official bass player?
Okay, well, we'd had problems with other bass players not sticking it out or whatever. I was looking for somebody that was really technically proficient too. That can be kind of hard to come by, like somebody who's like a true bass player at heart, which I'm actually using your words about describing Dave, but then technically proficient. So we had a couple people come by and try out for it, but it wasn't a good fit. It just didn't seem like it was going to work. And I'm like, I'm just going to message Mike, I guess. Mike might know somebody. And I really thought it was just a shot in the dark. Mm-hmm. And I messaged you, and you called me back and said, yeah, I've got a student. And you're like, he's a true bass player at heart. He even has cool gear, and he even looks cool.
He's got dreads, really long dreads.
Yeah. No, Dave, he is really cool.
Dave's a cool-looking dude.
So that's, you introduced us, and that's how it was. I reached out to you. You sent him, and right away we liked him a lot. But the only thing is I was worried he didn't like us because he was only able to hear like some things we put on a MySpace page, but apparently it was enough that he was intrigued.
Yeah.
But then when he got to show up, I'm like, well, actually, I'm writing new stuff, and this is what we're doing. And he's like, oh, I like that. Mm-hmm. And so he was on board, and it wasn't before long that we just made that official. But
plus, he's really easy to get along with.
Oh, yeah. I just saw him today. We had to go and get the Beastface van out of the impound lot today.
Oh, God.
I woke up this morning to a text message from our lead singer, Chris. He's in France.
Yeah.
And he had the van at his property on the street in South Minneapolis, and street sweepers came by and towed it. And I was like, well, that's not what I plan on doing with my day. And then Dave volunteered. He's like, I got the day off, you know. So we went and got it. But it was cool hanging out with him, you know, in the car ride and stuff and chit-chatting.
Can I ask how much it cost to get it out?
$212.
Okay. One time I had my car out, and it was winter, and they were doing like a, you know, plowing thing, and they towed my car. I went down, and I couldn't get there till like 2 days later, just because everything was so chaotic. I get there, and I ended up paying $800 to get my car back.
Oh my, what?
Yeah, and by this time, my Saturn wasn't probably even worth that much. And I'm just like, should I just leave it there? But no, they'll eventually send you a bill, you know, so it sucks. So. Is it like the official van that you've had all this time that you basically take all your gear to gigs in and all that?
It's our second one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the first one we called Wally, and then Wally just finally gave up his ghost after... We took that thing all over the Midwest, and
dude, band vans they have to put out, man, like 300,000 miles sometimes. Right? You know?
We've been talking about potentially just getting rid of it because we don't play a ton of shows like we used to, which I kind of like.
You don't want to burn out,
right? We used to just play like 2-3 shows a month. Where now we do about 2 or 3 shows a year.
Oh, it's that?
But
okay.
They're well attended, but in the meantime, I've been more interested in just creating more content. Like we did that video a couple of years ago.
It's a great video, man.
Thanks.
Very pro.
Working on doing more albums and like it just seems like back in the day when we were playing tons of shows, we're playing tons of shows to get people to get into our content. Mm-hmm. But now with the internet, it seems like you create content. And that's what gets people to the show.
It's a different world for sure now.
Lately, some things going on with Beastface I'm really excited about. And like I'd mentioned how our space now, we can just record. Yeah. We always had to do things separately. We'd track the drums separate, you know, where I would perform a scratch track to a click that had to be programmed. Then Brad would perform to my scratch track, then Dave, and then I'd have to redo my stuff. It would take forever. Yep. And none of us were playing together in the same room. Because of the bleed through, we're not getting any bleed through, or it's very minimal. It's not. It doesn't matter. And even if there are bands rehearsing in the next room, it's not getting picked up in the mics. This is like a miracle.
Wow. Do you guys have like gobos or something between you, like separating the sound?
I don't know exactly how Chris pulled it off.
Okay. Maybe he
some of these microphones just you aim it at one thing and that's all it picks
That's
up.
like these mics.
Yeah, and so, after we released EP1, because it's our third album, but I wanted to release it as a trilogy like Star Wars or The Matrix. So it's EP1, EP2, EP3. So it's released as 3 EPs.
Don't say The Matrix. There's only one Matrix. I'm just kidding.
Well, I'm just anything that's a trilogy. Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
So I wanted our third album to be called 3, but it's not really called 3. It's 3 EPs, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, cool.
And so we did the first one, but we had just finished recording it when the COVIDs happened, and Chris was still mixing it, but then it got released, and that one was done with everything all separate. But then we started getting back together again. We hadn't played together in like 8 months because of the pandemic, and everything was a little different. We were in new relationships, maybe working a different job, that kind of thing. And
Dave cut off his dreads. No, I'm just kidding.
No, he didn't. He'll never do that. So anyway, we decided to start getting together just once a week, and everybody was fine with that, and that was cool because I had just been embarking in a relationship now where there's a child, and I was becoming a dad.
Yeah.
Not just a stepdad, like she calls me her dad, like, and I was really stepping up to the the opportunity to be a part of this family.
It was cool to see all that happen, by the way.
Appreciate that.
I saw most of it on Facebook, but yes.
Well, so I was open to the idea of like one practice a week.
Yeah.
But then it would get canceled, and all of a sudden it was real spotty. And then about a year or 6 months ago, I don't know, this last year, our drummer said he really needs to cut back to every other week.
Oh, damn.
Right, and that was like, we were worried that's going to be kind of a blow.
Especially if you miss one, then it's a whole month.
He's always good about if he misses one, then he'll be there the next week.
Okay.
But because he's in a new relationship, he's getting married. I never thought this guy was going to get married. But
How old is he?
Dave's age. I think he's probably like 45, 46.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I think guys, when they hit that age, they start to see the wedding ring is not as such like a ball and chain anymore, It's like, who's going to wipe my ass when I'm 90?
Well, I'm 51, and this is my third marriage, actually. It's my best marriage, though. I got to say that. But so anyway, with a little, like a slowing down in the practice, and I'm like, well, you know what? That's okay, because we're not playing a lot of shows, and I don't want to. I want to make more videos, and I want to get our album done and just like write and record. I love that stuff. But it was like, but how do we do that with these limited practices? That's when Chris just suddenly threw down a bunch of money, bought all this gear. Mm-hmm. So we're all set up now to record. And so when we're there, he's recording us, but now him and I are getting together. We're back to 2 nights a week.
Nice.
And so he plays drums.
Perfect.
So him and I will get together on Monday nights, not tonight.
Yeah.
He's in France and I'm here.
Yep.
But and he'll play. Brad's totally cool. He gets on his drums, and we work out parts together and structure it. Dave said he'll show up from time to time on Monday nights, but it's not a good night for him because he goes to work in the morning. Mm-hmm. But he's there every Thursday. So I see Dave once a week. I see Chris twice a week, and then we see Brad twice a month. But it's actually moving quickly since we've done this. And at first I thought, okay, this thing's starting to slow down. It might just kind of fizzle out. It would probably, Beastface would never break up, so to speak, but where it would just be like, I don't want to do this all the time.
It's like Sanctus. We just get together for every 5-year reunion or something.
Yeah, and I thought it might turn into that. And I'm like, you know what, that breaks my heart a little bit, but I'm glad I've got my YouTube channel and focusing on that. And I'm always playing music. That's what I do every day. It's my job. Right. It's my living. But after Chris set this stuff up and the results are so amazing, I'm like, this is better than before, because when an album would take 6 months to a year, it would take like a year to write it and almost a year to record and mix it.
Yep.
Now I'm writing stuff. We're coming to the space, fleshing it out, putting it together, rehearsing it, playing it a few times, capturing a recording of it. And then 2 days later, I'm getting a mix that sounds like something you could release.
Yep.
And I'm like, whoa, I think our golden years are ahead of us, not behind us. And I'm really excited about it.
That's good, man. A lot of people always, like me, I hate to admit this, but I always feel like I'm very nostalgic. So I always look back at the past like, those were such great days. But to have that feeling of hope for the future, that's huge. And I think technology has really played a huge part in that for you, right?
Oh, absolutely. Well, and just the fact you can put it up on the internet.
Yeah, that's crazy. What's weird is I was talking to somebody about that, and I was thinking about how when Sanctus would put out a demo, we would literally bring like 5 of them to Food and Fuel, like a gas station, and say, "Can you sell these and you can keep half the money?" It's like we would sell maybe 100 demos if we were lucky. 100. Now imagine if out of all of your videos you only had 100 views. That's all you could have back in the day. It was 100 people hearing us. Nowadays, you could put out a video, and if you put out the right video, as your daughter learned, you could have how many views did she get in like 2 days? It was crazy.
It was over 2,000 in 2 days.
2,000 views. If we would have sold 2,000 demos or even just handed out 2,000, we would have been so happy. It's so crazy. And her video was really sweet because I feel like you help her, but I think she probably is the impetus for the idea. Like, I want my hand to disappear or something. Like,
Well, that was a clip from one of my videos.
oh, I didn't know that.
When I did the finger guard
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
I was talking about it and just saying, you know, and I hated that I was like I'm roasting this product because the actual product, they market it for a lot of different things, like not just for guitar.
Yeah, just overall exercises and stuff.
Using it for using it for mail or for sewing.
Anything repetitive.
Yeah, just anything to protect the tips of your fingers. But then they're like, well, why don't we market them as guitar things? Well, you know, in the video, I'm saying these things are really stupid, and I wasn't very kind on the product.
Well, you're honest, though.
It's supposed to be comedic, but anyway.
Yeah.
So I was like, why would you want these things? And I'm like, well, on second thought, and then it did a flashback where I was doing Harper's guitar lesson, and she's screaming, and her hand falls off. And then I was like, and then it cuts to a clip where I'm playing the riff to Crazy Train, and my hand starts on fire.
That's hilarious.
And you know, I'm just joking, like, what are we worried about happening if we don't have these things on, you know? But when Harper started her YouTube channel, incidentally, that video was one of my biggest was my biggest video.
I remember it hit 500 in like a day or something.
Yeah, and then 1,000 after like
Yeah.
a week or so,
Yeah.
and it was. I'm like, why that one? I mean, I'm proud of it. I like it, but what about it? Was it the name?
You never know. It might just be the thumbnail you used. It's kind of a gimmick, a gadget type thing, which people like. There's a YouTuber named Samurai Guitarist who's like, he always reviews the worst guitar gadgets and they get huge views, you know, it's great.
Well, so yeah, and back to Harper's video, she wanted a YouTube channel, and she had ideas for what she would create, but she was disappointed because right away she saw there were other channels called Planet Harper, and so hers was you couldn't even find it. It was buried.
Gets lost.
And so I'm like, okay, here's how we're gonna push it to the top. I've got tons of videos of you and I doing Lego movies, and I'm like, and I'll just take that clip of where her hand falls off in the guitar lesson. And so we put it up there, and then the next day I get up and I pulled up her channel, and it said that it was up to like 90 views. And that number kind of jumped at me, like 90. That kind of seems like a lot for a channel that we just started yesterday. And I'm like, it is okay, that's cool. Yep. And then I went to work a few hours later, and then she texted me and said, Brandon, my video's up to like 600. And I'm like, what? And I looked at it, I'm like, no way. It was, and I started watching it. It was getting like 10 views a minute or something like that.
It's pretty astonishing when the first one takes off.
Yeah, and then it after like 2 days it was well past 2,000. Well, we started out talking about my channel, and we started going off on other tangents, and I didn't finish one thought that I'd had in mind was about how I rebooted it after I got reestablished after my divorce and all that. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this again. But I knew that I had changed. I was looking at it, I'm like, that's not me. And even then, that wasn't me.
Isn't
that
that
person
weird?
on there. I was just so stiff. And I was like, that's really strange because I know that I've been a popular guitar instructor because my personality. It's not because I play the riff to Crazy Train better than anybody else.
Right.
Like anybody that plays guitar could play that riff and then therefore teach it. But why am I such a popular teacher? You know, to just do something like that, there's got to be something else. Like, well, it has a lot to do with, I think, my personal experience with it. Like, it's palatable. I'm enthusiastic. I'm just like, oh, that riff again. Here we go. We're like, I still get excited. I remember when I first learned to play it, and I can share that with students. And I was watching my old videos, and I'm like, they're good. I put a lot of work into them, but I'm like, that's not me.
Yeah.
And I want it to be me. And me, well, I'm like my grandma, the Irish storyteller. I just gab, you know.
Gather around, kids.
And I'm just going to do that So I really want my personal experiences to be told in connection to whatever it is I want to say about music. And I just started doing it. I was just in a whole different mindset because, again, like I said, I went through this awakening and I got into this mindset where I'm just like, I kind of just don't care about the future and that anymore. I'm so much more in the now, and I'm not worrying about like, oh, is this right? Is that right? And I'm like, I was just getting in front of the camera and not saying I don't get red light syndrome still, but just feeling a lot more comfortable in my own skin, just being me.
Yeah. I almost feel like I'm like in your lesson room now when you talk and you tell stories. It's less like you're aware that the camera's there. You're just being yourself. And I think that authenticity is what's going to keep you going. And, you know, you're not going to dread doing videos because you're going to feel like you're actually sharing something that you want to share.
Just enjoyed, just talking and almost forget that there's a camera in front of me and just telling the story. But it was interesting though, because all of a sudden I would just release a video and it would get 100 views in like the first 12 hours. I'm like, wait a minute, I wasn't getting that before. And like then this last one that I did on the CJSS album, that one's really close to 500.
Yeah.
Which I was excited about to see, those kinds of numbers. They're not like yours. Yours are insane, but still like 500. I'm like, no, I remember when I started this thing, I would get like 20 and there's like, whatever, I'm grateful for that.
It's levels, man. I woke up today because I put out my video about my double neck guitar where I like modded it and it has this cool sympathetic resonance. I thought this video is going to freaking rock, And I wake up, it's like 5,000 views and I'm like, it's kind of weird. You have, 900,000 subscribers and 5,000 see it. But then I'm like, you can't control that sometimes. Sometimes you made a shitty video. Sometimes it just didn't click on the algorithm. But then I think about it. I'm like, man, when I first started, if I woke up and I saw I got 5,000 views for a video, I would have crapped my pants, So it's levels.
Well, there are YouTubers where I'm certain to watch every single one of their videos. Yours is one of them.
Thank you.
I get the notification and I always make a point. It's kind of like my nightly routine. I used to back in the day. I mean, I binge watched Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad and that. I'm done. I get people telling me, oh, did you see the new Fallout show or whatever? I'm like, don't get me started on any shows. Because I've got a daughter now and I'm trying to do YouTube, my band and my teaching and everything else that goes with it. I go to the gym and like, I don't know how I used to have time for that. I love it when I see there's new videos from like you. Or there's a philosopher that I like. If he's got a new video, I'll check that out. But then when they're gone, I'm just like, okay, I got through all those. I'm all caught up. And then I'll maybe try some new people. Like I like to, when I get recommended, I found some classical guitar people recently that are really, really good.
There's a lot of talent out there, for sure.
Yeah, they're either playing and they're really good and talking about some kind of technique. But a lot of them get into the history, and I've been learning things about some of these composers that I've been studying my whole life, and like, I didn't know that about that guy.
Do you remember the first video that started to get a lot of comments, and did you get a lot of weird shit posts and hate comments? And
I haven't gotten a lot of negativity on mine.
That's good.
But I have noticed, like, it started out where if I got any thumbs up, it was always thumbs up, never thumbs down. But I didn't think that's just because I'm perfect. I don't have any thumbs down. I'm like, it's just not getting watched enough. But
it's a numbers game at that point, yeah.
Yeah, the past couple of years, I now get thumbs down on there. And it doesn't bother me because I suddenly felt like I finally joined the real YouTube world.
Yes,
where prior to that, I felt like I was almost like a kid in a band, and like his family comes, and
nice
the
job.
audience is his family, and but like no, that shows that there are people that are checking out my channel because it's being recommended, and so they didn't like it. Well, that's fine. I'm pretty sure if I had footage of the birth of Christ and put it on YouTube, it would get thumbs down. I've gotten negative feedback. I got a lot of negative feedback on one video that I did. And it was called The Creepiest Christmas Song Ever Written.
Yeah.
And it was on the Coventry Carol, because the Coventry Carol is about King Herod sending out soldiers to ram swords through babies, which is part of the Bible story with Jesus. Yeah. And it's called the
They wrote a song about that?
The Innocent. Huh?
They wrote a song about infanticide?
There's a Christmas song about that. It's called the Coventry Carol. That one had gotten some negativity.
Because of the religious side of it?
Yeah, I guess so. And again, it was one of those things where like, I don't care. I'm like, I was having fun with it, but I don't mind admitting I sort of pushed it a little bit beyond, because I got to it and finally got to the song. This is the creepiest one. Like, because I talked about other ones saying that could have been this one, but it's not. This is the creepiest Christmas song ever, the Coventry Carol, and here's why. And I got the whole history of it. It's in the Bible, but then it's an actual Christmas song. But there's also, the Coventry Carol is a classic painting. So what I did is I ended the video with me in front of my green screen playing the Coventry Carol on classical guitar with the painting. And the painting's got babies sawn in half on the ground and blood. And
so it's like a carcass cover.
Yeah, or Cannibal Corpse.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
Cannibal Corpse.
And I just played it. And I'm trying to keep a straight face, knowing how this ridiculous is going to look. Playing this, and at the end, I finished the tune, and then I just looked at the camera and I said, "Very Christmassy."
Oh God!
But
I just feel the spirit after that one.
But I got some negative feedback, not on my channel, but it was coming through students who showed it to their friends.
Okay.
And then they were coming back and saying, yeah, I was talking to my sister-in-law, and she said he's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah. I watched that. That's not what that song's about. And like, I didn't make this up. Like, you just Google it.
Plus, you're very knowledgeable in that world, you know, if people knew your history. But, you know, it's almost like you can't fight back sometimes because it only makes it worse, because if they're in denial about the truth about something, they don't want to know the truth. It's like, I learned that over the years. It's like, let everybody, including myself, I have a lot of delusions, but I want to expose them. You know, maybe it's the Alan Watts influence.
Love Alan Watts, by the way.
He was like an alcoholic, but he was still.
Oh, I think, yeah, I only just recently found that out, that he had a bit of a drinking problem.
So he was kind of like the party, you know, Zen guy. But, and I think that's possible to do, because it's like, you know, it's not good, but you still imbibe in it because it's just, I don't know, just fun.
Well, he's probably, it's like a lot of times with, you know, like alcohol, or some people use like psychedelics, they're sort of doing a frequency sweep like we do in the studio.
Yep.
Just shutting out certain frequencies that aren't serving them. And then it's like, oh, it's like a teacher. Like Bashar is somebody I really like listening to. And Bashar has been asked, you know, like, well, is alcohol and marijuana, is that bad? And he's like, it's not bad in and of itself, but I liked how he put this. He said, they're a teacher. Yeah. And they can really help you to a point, but remember, eventually the student has to outgrow the teacher.
Yeah. Are you a big horror movie fan?
I used to be, but I mean, I still like horror, but I don't watch a lot of it.
You could probably tell I like crazy.
Oh, absolutely.
But we're watching Highway to Hell right now in the background. But do you know Twilight Zone, the movie?
Yes.
So do you know the whole story about the helicopter crash that happened during the filming of it?
No.
It's so crazy. It's like the second segment of the whole movie. You know how it's a bunch of different segments? The first one is Dan Aykroyd in the car. You want to see something really scary? The second one is about a guy, Vic Morrow, who actually... The actual episode is him as like a bigot, kind of, you know, racist guy, and then he has to live the life of the people that he used to hate. That was kind of the twist of the whole thing. And at the very end, he has to be in Vietnam while his troop that he's with is shooting at him, and he's trying to save these two Vietnamese kids. And there's a scene where a helicopter is like flying above them, and he's trying to escape. Well, in the making of it, the helicopter ends up crashing into the water and killing him and the two kids. It's the worst thing I ever saw, because I saw this documentary called Cursed Films, and they showed it in slow motion, and the blades actually cut them up. It's the worst thing ever. They kept it in the movie. Not the death, but the segment. Wow. Even after all that happened, they decided, maybe they decided we spent too much money trying to make this, we're going to keep it in there. But that's one of the times where they didn't decide to take it out because of what happened.
That reminds me of... and I keep bringing up my channel. I'm not saying I'm going to plug my channel.
No, I understand.
But it reminds me of a couple videos back. I did the making of the video that my band did, Big Belt Buckle. And I talked about some of the dangers we were subjected to.
Yeah, because you guys had some like fires and stuff going. Yeah, that's right.
But then I referenced that movie Roar. Have you heard of that?
Mm-mm.
I had just recently...
Is that a Katy Perry movie? Just kidding. She has a song called Roar.
It was Tippi Hedren.
The Birds?
Yep. And this was beautiful. She probably got the idea from the Birds, because that's real. That's a real reaction when the birds are attacking her. And Hitchcock did that stuff. So anyway, her and her husband were like, he was a director. So this is later in her career, but they owned a bunch of properties But they decided on this one property that they had to just have a film crew there to just film all day long, and they rented lions and tigers and all these crazy animals to just live in their house. And
I heard stories about that. Yeah, wild animals to be heard. Okay.
Yeah, and the movie took like 10 years to finish because people kept getting hospitalized. One guy got completely scalped.
Whoa.
But then they put this stuff in the movie. They got all this footage. There's like a footage where Tippi Hedren falls off an elephant and breaks her leg.
And it was all real?
Yeah, and then they put that footage in there.
It's like a snuff film almost, except without death, hopefully.
Yeah, nobody died, but came really close. But
what a weird, how much cocaine were they on? Like, we're just going to get all these wild animals and film it. That's insane.
I had a student, this was way back in the Pitch Fever days, but he was really into horror. And I liked horror films, especially back at the time. I was way more into horror back then than I am now. But he said, let's do, a movie trade.
Horror exchange?
He's like, yeah.
I like that.
He's like, I'm going to tell you the scariest movie I've seen. You tell me yours, and then we'll go home and watch them. I'm like,
how old was he?
He was like 15.
Was he into like Saw and stuff then?
Well, that was just it. I think the movie was called The Collector.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just super gory. Mm-hmm. I didn't think anything was scary about it.
For gory's
just
sake.
A lot of gore and a lot of really creative ways of showing people having their limbs chopped off
Creative
and lots
kills,
of blood.
Yeah, yep.
That was my take on it. Now, it was interesting. We both came back saying, I didn't think your movie was very scary. He said the same about mine. Mine was The Shining. Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
I could see how The Shining to a kid wouldn't be as scary as like what
scared the hell out of me when I was 8.
Me too, but it's different times now,
Well, and that's just it. It is. There's a different expectation, like Saw and Hostel, those kinds of movies. They're just really hard to watch because it's just torture scenes
porn,
and gore.
Yeah.
Where you take like the original Halloween, there's no blood in that. You'll see a guy with a butcher knife gets rammed right through his chest. There's no blood.
Interesting. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, they don't have any fake blood in that movie, but that movie was creepy.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, that movie wasn't considered creepy by John Carpenter's publicist when she first watched it until he added the music.
Oh, nice. Which he composed, right?
Yeah, she was like, "This
amazing.
isn't scary. This no, this is crap or whatever." Yeah. Then he went and did the soundtrack and brought it back. She's like, "Oh, okay, we've got a movie."
He was way into synthesizers, which I really respect.
Yeah.
It's like, we're going to make this really insane, 3-note sequence, kind of like Jaws with 2 notes. It's like the minimalistic approach really worked back then.
Well, then in The Shining, there was some gore, but it was mostly plot driven. It was a lot of drama.
Yeah, the most gore in The Shining was probably the axe scene and the blood coming out of the elevators, maybe, and then the lady in the bathtub, right?
Yeah, there's a quick clip where it shows the twins all bloody.
That's true. Yeah, hacked up.
And then you've got that guy gets the axe in the chest.
Halloran.
Yeah. Otherwise, there's not a lot, and there, you have to wait a long time before you even get to that stuff.
That's why I was gonna say recommending that to like a kid. They need to have a lot of attention span to be able to like consume The Shining. Maybe he watched it in segments and didn't take in the whole thing.
Yeah, he just said it wasn't very scary, and I'm like,
boring. The Exorcist is boring. Like, screw you. That movie haunts me to this day.
So it freaked me out, but as cable went back in those days, they didn't just air a movie at one night.
Yeah.
It would be on the next night, and we were watching it every night. And by the time school started, I was in 4th grade. I was a seasoned horror movie guy. I was so desensitized. And I remember going to Catholic school, and I would be in my notebook at recess drawing like people with their arms chopped off or a head chopped off. Wow. And then I'd get out the red marker and I'd draw in the blood. And, these teachers in Catholic school were walking by like, what?
You're drawing like Children of the Corn pictures and stuff. Holy shit.
Yeah, but I was just obsessed with gore.
Yeah.
And it probably looked really disturbing, but I was a good-natured child. I just suddenly was really obsessed with it.
Did they call your parents or anything?
No, they didn't. But it's a funny memory.
So you started getting into the more freaky horror movies, like Faces of Death and all that stuff.
Right. I was gonna get to the point about like, just the more gore doesn't make it more scary.
Right.
Because all of a sudden we're like, oh man, this one's banned in 30 different countries. And we're at this one. I remember this one stands out. It was called Buried Alive.
Yeah, I saw that.
You know that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, do you remember like the scene where the dude grabs the woman's hand with the pliers and starts ripping
Yep.
her fingernails out?
Yep, that's nice.
And he had just gotten done like doing some embalming on some body. I don't even know that we knew why he had this body. This woman, he's like taking out all of the guts and then then just a scene ripping out the fingernails, and we're just me and my buddy are sitting there like, oh god, oh, take it away. But we weren't scared. We're just about ready to run to the bathroom and throw up.
Yeah,
That's
it was
all.
more gross than anything. Yeah, for sure. I don't like those soft, hostile type things because what scares me about it is that I know there's people out there that would actually do that kind of stuff.
Oh, well, it's crazy that all that torture stuff on Saw was based on real life. They just Googled Spanish Inquisition and
Yep. Also, rich people that get bored. Like when they showed the scene where the guy's just like taking a drill and like, what would it be like to drill someone in the head? I've had limited experience with like really rich people, but I've played gigs at like golf resorts where people are just super wealthy. They get bored. They make weird bets with each other. I went up to order Jack on the Rocks and they said, a shot of Jack. And she's like, we can't give you that. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, because you can only order certain drinks because a shot of Jack looks bad because everybody there were alcoholics basically. And the guy looked at me, he's like, you don't come here very much, do you? I'm like, no. He's like, we're all alcoholics here and we can't just order shots. I'm like, okay, so
what were they drinking?
Fancy stuff like martinis and stuff that was actually like mixed drinks.
And what does that make it not an alcoholic beverage?
Yep. Because suddenly you're not like in the Old West ordering like just a shot of Jack anymore.
Wow, that's some serious bullshit.
It is. But it was weird. That was a big realization for me when we were playing this like super ritzy golf resort. And the guy looks at me and he's like an old silver-haired guy and he looks like he's super wealthy. He's like, we're all alcoholics here. I'm like, whoa. I always wonder though, when you suddenly have all the money in the world and you could do whatever you want, what you choose to do with that says a lot about where you're at mentally. Like what would you do tomorrow if you woke up and you had 50 mil in the bank?
Oh, well, that's the beautiful thing about my life. I would still go and teach.
Yeah, but Beastface would have some badass videos. They still do, which is cool. But would you do more of what you already do?
I would cut back on teaching. Right now, I got about 67 students.
Wow. Every week, right?
Yeah, every week, and I love them all. That would be the hard thing. I've often thought like, yeah, I would still come here and do this if I was independently wealthy. But I guess I wouldn't do it as much. Like being independently wealthy would allow me to free up my time and spend more time with my YouTube channel or with my band. Yeah. I've often thought of funny things I would do. Like if I just had more money than I knew what to do with, I would like release an album and like every billboard on the road would be advertising. Like, how funny would that be?
You'd be that guy that, the billboard with the guy who's his arms out. Like
yeah.
You'd be him. I hate that guy so bad. Like I go to my friend's music store sometimes he sets up my Guitarist. It's in Forest Lake. And all of a sudden I see like 12 of those billboards all like back to back to back. I'm like, how much attention does this guy need? That would be you. Except you'd have a guitar in your hands probably.
Or I've come up with all kinds of wacky crap that I would do if I had the money to do it.
I like that. That says a lot about you because some people when they, if I had a bunch of money, I would do this and I'd buy a mansion and I would just be gluttonous. It'd be I don't know. It's like hedonism is so easy to fall into when suddenly you have the means. But what I really find interesting in what you said is that you would still try to teach and, stay grounded, which is the opposite of what I did. Like when my YouTube channel took off, it was strangely right before the COVID stuff. So a lot of my students couldn't make it to lessons anyway. So what I ended up doing was I just quit teaching privates and I just have like 3 private students now, but they're the 3 people that have been with me forever. And I miss some of that stuff.
I had a really unique experience during the pandemic. When it started, I had 70 students, and it was the most students I'd ever had in my life.
That's insane. That's like, remember Paul Kruger from Schmidt?
Yeah.
He would have like that. It was his full-time job, so it worked out.
As was mine, but I had 70 students, and then in one day, just Schmidt's announced that they're closing because of the pandemic. The school's closed. So I teach at an elementary school 2 days a week. Then I was coming here. I had like 16 students I saw in one day here. Nothing was changing with that.
That's still crazy. 16 students in one day.
It was a long day. But yeah, so I had Schmitz and I had the elementary school, and both in just one day. It's like, we're closed. And I was sitting at a cafe. I had to play a show that night, and I was sitting in a cafe waiting for my house to be looked at because I was still going through my divorce and I wanted it to sell. And I just suddenly felt overwhelmed with just, this is too much. And I remember looking at the cell phone, and like, Brandon, what? Does the cell phone weigh 1,000 pounds? Pick it up, start messaging people. That's all you got to do. And I did. I took it in my own hands and started messaging everybody. I'm sure you heard schools are closed. Schmitz is closed. Doesn't mean we can't do lessons. I've been doing a virtual program with the student that moved to Seattle, and it's actually been working. I'd love to streamline a little bit more. If you're interested, let me know. But initially, I dropped from 70 students to about 35 or 40.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I don't know if I have a career anymore unless this thing really does the flatten the curve thing or say in 2 weeks. I'm like, I'm not sure that's going to happen. I'm not going to count on that. I'm not getting on unemployment. Just going to make this work. Well, I was like, how am I going to make a living on that? Well, then I was like, when I did the math, I'm like, that doesn't look good. But I'm like, oh, wait, I forgot to subtract something. I don't have to pay studio fees now.
There's that.
And once I put that in there, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be just fine.
Yeah.
That was in March. By fall, I had 80 students. Like the school district, when I told them I was still teaching, I'm like, I'm still seeing these students. And they're like, that's amazing. Like, could you take on more? I'm like, hey, I got nothing else to do, man.
Yeah.
Like, there's a stay-at-home order, and they got nothing else to do.
Mm-hmm. The world shut down.
Yeah, and so then they're like, well, kids aren't in school, in the classroom anymore. I'm like, I will teach from 2 to 9 every day.
Yeah.
And they just started sending me students, and I was getting all this feedback, and the school was messaging me saying, like, yeah, like they are so grateful for what you've done, this virtual program. And when I say streamlined, I mean I got really good with my camera and being cognizant of the angles and showing them what I'm doing and making sure it's clear.
Yep.
I had to explain things in much greater detail.
Yeah. It's a different world.
But then also making sure that I would see, this is different. Like when you're teaching in person, you write out their stuff. Here you go. They take it home. Now I had to keep a record. I had folders for each day of the week and kept all their music in there, but I would scan it. This is what it would be I would get done with teaching, and I would have another hour of work after that to go on my computer and scan everything that we did and send them all out to make sure they've got their lessons. But I leaned into it, and I was like, I couldn't believe it when all of a sudden I had 80 students.
This is why you're always okay, It'd be so easy back then just to give up and accept whatever the government was giving people at the time. But you stuck to it, and I think that has a lot to do with the whole picture of why you're a successful private guitar instructor.
Yeah, if that happened back in 1999, I'd have hit some financial uncertainties.
Yeah.
At the time, I worked part-time at a restaurant and part-time as a teacher, and then I also owned an apartment building. So I probably would have found a way to get through it with my rental income, and the restaurant certainly wouldn't have worked out, but I wouldn't have been able to do virtual either. Well, I was going to say, so having gone through a 7-month experience where I really had to learn the true meaning of letting go, when you're in a situation where you have everything's going really well and it's easy to say oh, I'm really zen, I can just let go and I don't care. Well, you're never really going to know until you're put in that situation. And
it's easy to say when you have it. It's like after you just had Thanksgiving dinner and then you're like, oh, I'm not afraid to starve. It's like, well, you're not really in that mind space right now,
Yeah, or it's summertime and you say I could be out in 10 below weather without a coat. But so I did a lot of meditation. That was one of the things that really helped me, because during that really difficult time, I only missed 2 days of work.
Wow.
And I would meditation was a really big game changer for me.
I wish people could know your story, but it might be a little too heavy to go into right now.
Yeah, I have no intention of doing that.
Yeah, but you could say bad divorce and people hopefully will understand.
Yep. Yeah, just a challenging time, and I lost a lot. I lost a lot of wealth and stuff that I had built up. Yeah. But in this meditation, I did this meditation. It's not something I made up. It's a common one that I read in some books about meditation where you try to, if you get deep enough into meditation, you have to work at it, but you can imagine your higher self where you actually personify it in your mind. So you might just envision I think it's called the old man meditation or something like that. Whatever though, you could just maybe be envisioning SpongeBob SquarePants, doesn't matter, whatever agrees with you so that you feel like you're actually communing with this higher self and personifying and getting a visual, and then you can speak to it. And that's what I did, and it started yielding really interesting results, which is similar like to the Monroe Project, the Gateway Experience.
I have that.
Yeah. Oh, do you have? Okay.
I went to some crazy places and I got scared.
Well, it's where you're bypassing the left brain filtering mechanism and then harvesting ideas in the left brain subconscious, or I'm sorry, the right brain subconscious. And then you can pull them out and rationally like look at them. So then you're then analyzing with that left brain.
Because the left brain's more analytical, right?
Yeah, it's the filtering mechanism. It's slow, but it's the gatekeeper. It decides what's right and wrong. But once it passes through, it becomes a belief system. And then it's your subconscious acting, and that's you. So anyway, that's what I was trying to do, is always bypass that filter and then, speak to this higher version of myself. I think it's kind of like what Freud had, was like the ego and the superego.
Yeah.
It was like my ego talking to the superego. Anyway, so that enough said, that's a type of meditation. And in one of these, when I was just feeling really desperate, like I'm losing everything and I don't know what's going on in my life, I try to envision, I try to manifest, but I'm like, I don't know what this is going to end up like. It could be disastrous.
Yeah.
In that meditation, this wise old man in my mind said, with uncertainty, there are limitless or unlimited possibilities. With uncertainty, there are unlimited possibilities. And I'm
Makes
like,
sense.
wow. And I came out of the meditation. I'm like, where'd that come from? Is that like Buddha or Lao Tzu? And I like Googled it and I didn't find anything. Like, no, that came from my own brain.
That's Wells.
Yeah. And I liked it. And I'm not to say like, see, I'm a profound philosopher, but it was beautiful. That meditation was so powerful because I'm like, uncertainty has unlimited possibilities. I like that. I don't know what the future holds. It could be anything.
Yeah.
And I started to get excited about that.
Into the great wide open.
Yeah.
I like that. And with that, look what came.
Oh, absolutely. And that was the thing, like this, like manifestation, I like that. But I think where it can have some problems is people get too specific.
Yeah.
And they need to stop and realize the ego has a very, very small imagination.
Yeah. So you could limit yourself and put a ceiling on yourself that way.
Exactly. Yeah. Very well put.
Yeah. I've been guilty of that because I grew up watching so many movies and having these dreams of like the kind of women I want to be, Audrey Hepburn, all this stuff. And then you get what you want. You realize it really wasn't for you. You may have manifested it because you tried and it does work. It's crazy. But you think very egotistically. You're right. It's like, if I had this car, if I had this kind of thing, or, and now you get old enough, you just want to do everything that you love every day of your life and be with the people you want to be with. It's a full circle thing. That's why it's a blessing. I hate to say this, to not get what you want when you're younger, because could you imagine if you and I were like 21 and someone's like, what do you guys want? Like I would have signed any contract if like, Columbia or whoever came to me, all you owe us is your soul. Okay, give me the pen, man.
Because this is all yeah. It makes me think of, there's this book, it's called Body, Mind, Mastery. It was written by Dan Millman. He was a 1950s
I know
Olympic
Dan Millman,
gymnast.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
He actually did the Path of the Warrior. What was that called? The Sacred Warrior?
Yeah. He did have another book like that. I haven't read that one, but I did
It's
read
a movie. It was so good they made it into a movie. It was like the
no
Path
way.
of the Sacred Warrior, but it's all about like having a Zen master teaching this gymnast, and he like breaks his leg and he has to like go through all the stuff that we went through. But yeah, Dan Millman's legit.
Well, I definitely want to check that out, what you're talking about, because I loved this book. It's one of the only times I've read a book, and when I got to the last page, I started it right over again.
Nice.
But
it's like me with The Power of Now. That's cool.
I'm almost done with that one. I've just been doing a little bit. It's pretty quick read, actually.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to read.
It's like a dialogue.
So he had these little glib sayings at the beginning of every chapter, something from Confucius or whatever. And they were all cool, but I'll never forget this and I think this quote is best related to somebody telling it from my personal experience because it's kind of funny. I look at it and I open it up and like the next chapter and it said, "May you accomplish all your goals." And then it said like ancient Chinese proverb. And I'm just like, I stopped and I'm like, come on. What? Seriously? That's lame. And then I opened it up again and I'm like, it doesn't say ancient Chinese proverb. It says ancient Chinese curse.
Nice.
It's like, oh my God, I misread it. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, that's a good one.
It went from being a platitude to like profound.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, it's like giving someone all their wishes, you know, especially when you're young, dumb, and full of, you know, I keep bringing that up, but it's like that idea of being a young band, we would have signed our soul over as long as you told us that we're going to make it, you know, and what would that involve in the future? You see all these like kid stars and what they end up being. It's just not worth the trade. But now that we're old enough to really understand that, it's like we're almost beyond that time when we can enjoy the fruits of what that would have brought anyway. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't think like a world tour would sit with me as well as it would have when I was, 17.
They just really glamorize that lifestyle. But like if my band for some reason got really big and then there was a demand like that, my family would not like that.
Yeah.
They would not be seduced by it. I don't think my wife at all would be like, oh, that's awesome, I'm married to a rock star. She would hate that.
It's different now for sure. One of the things that is really educational for everybody is to get what you want.
Yeah, I mean, I'm referencing philosophers frequently. I hope that's okay. But like, I love Leibniz when he gets into the...
I feel like you're a philosopher, so it comes naturally.
I appreciate that. I've never thought in those terms. I always think that's like a pretty big claim to make.
But if you're interested and you resonate with philosophers, I think it just comes through you because you're the channel, so you become a philosopher.
I'll ride on that compliment for a while. I appreciate that.
So
So Leibniz, basically, like one of the things he's best known for is he believed that this world must be the most perfect of all possible worlds. And he went through his PSI, principle of sufficient reason. It's like, well, do I believe in God? Yes. Is God perfect? Yes. Did God create this world? Yes. Well, then this must be a perfect world. So we're the best of all possible worlds. And so when you get into what is this world and why does it seemingly imperfect, it's because of the differences.
Yeah.
But he was getting into that. No, it's our differences that make things perfect. Where, like, if you get into sacred geometry, like the flower of life, they're all the same circle. You put them in the same place, it's one boring circle, but put them in different places, so now they have their own particularity.
Suddenly you have a Tool video.
Yeah,
I get it.
And so, yeah, it's like you're over there, I'm over here, this is this high, this is red, that's green. So we live in this world of all these differences, and that's what makes it amazing and worth living. And so when you get into this thing about, I've got this vision of if I have all these things, my life's going to be perfect. It's like, you're taking the magic out of it.
Yeah.
And
you're writing the recipe instead of discovering it.
Yeah, and we should have these conflicts. We should have things that... Can you imagine a movie where there isn't a problem?
Yeah,
where it's just some guy that everything goes perfectly?
It would suck ass.
Or a video game where there's no bad guys
or just
puzzles
being,
to
always
solve?
being in God mode in video games, you know?
Yeah.
At first it's cool. Like Resident Evil, you have that laser gun, Resident Evil 4, and you're just like, you go in a room and there's all these like bad guys, you just go, and they all die. It's like, after a while...
Well, and so think about it, like movies and video games, these are a huge, huge industry, very, very popular form of entertainment. Now, people will indulge in those things and subject themselves to all the frustrations that come with it, the relentless hours and hours of trying to get past a level or just get through a movie to see the happy ending. But in real life, they don't approach real life with that same zeal and ardor. And it seems strange to me.
It's like people that watch Star Wars and they're always rooting for the rebels, and then they come back to real life and they're actually rooting for the other side. It's like, what are you doing?
There's a Twilight Zone episode that deals with this.
Which one? I've watched
this guy, he's a bad guy, and he dies. And all of a sudden he's at the pearly gates, and he's got an angel that's giving him the tour of heaven.
Oh, I remember this.
And
he won't let his dog in?
Huh?
Is it the one with the dog?
No, it's not that. Well,
Okay.
that's kind of a Western.
There's a couple like Pearly Gates episodes in Twilight Zone, yeah.
Well, this is a bad guy.
Oh, wait. Yes. It's like a hotel, and he gets all his wishes. Like he's a gambler, and he wins every.
Yep, exactly. He's gambling, and he's
Sorry,
winning
I had to
every
prove
time.
that I knew what you were talking about. Sorry, that's my ego.
And so here he's like, and he's having fun. Like, I'm just winning every time, I'm getting everything I want. Man, heaven's awesome. And then later he starts to get bored because it becomes so predictable.
He's just throwing the dice. Like,
And
of course,
he tells his tour guide of heaven, he's like, hey, I'm bored. I don't like this. I want to go to the other place. And then the tour guide goes, the other place? Where'd you think you were?
You are in the other place. And they do a close-up of his face. It's classic because I thought about that. I told somebody this the other day. I'm like, I think this is probably heaven. But I have another idea about that. What if heaven is so boring because it's perfect that you just choose to keep coming back to this really strange world, imperfect world? And in being imperfect, it's perfect. When you live your whole life and you realize that the parts that are the strongest and the best parts of your life came from a result of the darkest stuff that happened to you, you realize why you need both sides, you know?
There was a Hegel quote that I was pondering for a while. I really like the philosopher Hegel.
Yeah.
But it's like I was spending like an hour on just one page. Because this dude, like a lot of philosophers,
absorbing it as much as he could,
trying to understand it.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of these people, when they're writing, they can't construct a sentence with less than 100 words, and
they weren't very succinct.
Yeah, and some of the words you got to Google them. What is verse along or what? And so and then you're getting the gist of there's a Hegel word, gist, Geist, and
Nice.
but you start to get the gist of what he's saying. Now, I'm like, what is this? Like, I know it's got to mean something, but he was getting into like the externality of the internality and the material world. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. He's talking about the whole external world as a reflection of our internal selves. But he just sandwiched it right in there for no particular reason, just said light is levity. Like, what is that? And so I mentioned earlier, like this YouTuber that I like to interact with on his live streams. He's very, very, very knowledgeable philosopher, knows a lot about philosophy and ontology and science. I put the quote in the super chat. I paid him $10. Like,
Nice.
Please explain this. And he said everything I already knew about everything about it. And then I mentioned back and I said, but why did he say light is levity? And he just looks at the camera and goes, Brandon, I don't know. It's Hegel. Like, fair enough. Okay, then we can both just chalk it up to it's just Hegel. But it hit me about 2 months ago. Now, this is only me. I don't have anybody else to verify this, but I think I know what it meant. And it's actually really cool. How is light levity? How is light funny? Well, that's just it. Watch any George Carlin stand-up. He is shining light on darkness and making it funny as hell.
Definitely, yeah.
That's how light is levity.
Yeah.
These things that linger in the darkness and like we aren't talking about them, but then all of a sudden somebody like George Carlin is able to cast light on it with his eloquent way of speaking.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's just like, oh my God, that's so true, but it's dark, but now it's funny.
That's exactly why I think we need comedians more than ever, and why the tide is turning now. I had a band practice here one time with a lot of really awesome musicians, but they're really single-minded in a certain way. And one of them said, yeah, I think we need to start to silence comedians and not let them speak their mind as much, because I think they get a free pass. And everybody in the band's like, yeah, I think they are,
Oh.
And I stood up because I've grown up with, one of my first experiences was my grandma dubbed a Gallagher special on VHS, and I used to watch it. So my whole life is about comedians. And I said, that's insane, dude. What are you saying? Like, that's our last hope right there, that we have people that could still speak their mind. And it was so cool because over the last couple of years, I've been seeing more and more people get into comedy, and they go, I feel good when we can laugh at things that we used to be afraid to laugh at.
I almost mentioned earlier, like really early on in this discussion, I think it was because about like the impact we're having on students and that. It's something I've thought about for many years doing what I do and how powerful it is. Because some people say curses aren't real. And I even recently was listening to somebody on YouTube talk about curses, and somebody asked him, are curses real? And he's like, no, they're not. They're not real. They only have the power that you give them, but they're not really real. And I'm like, I get what he's saying. It's true, but I'm like, curses are real in this sense. When you think of curses, you picture like some witch doctor blowing dust in your face and going, like 1,000 years bad luck on you. But no, it's more like if I had a student come to me and tries to play guitar and they're trying to play a C chord and I'm like, oh, no, that's wrong. You know what? You're not ever going to be good at this.
You're not cut out for this, kid.
That's a curse.
Yeah.
That kid would very likely 20 years later be talking to his kids or friends or whatever, and they were like, didn't you used to play guitar? He's like, oh, I took a couple lessons, but the teacher told me I'd never be good at it, and so I've never done it since. Because it's a curse that's stuck.
Becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like you curse yourself from the suggestion, basically. I've had so many students come in and they would play guitar and they're like, I really love this Nirvana song or whatever. And they would start humming it. I'm like, you could sing it if you want. They're like, no, I can't sing. What do you mean? Well, this teacher back in the day said I sucked, so I can't sing. And I feel really bad because one time, I'll have to go to my grave with this, but we were doing like a practice and this one girl wanted to sing a song, but I had hired a professional singer to come in and sing for the rock band class. And the professional singer just freaking rocked the song, you know. But this girl wanted to just sing, and it was like she had like a real monotone sort of voice. And I was like, you know, I think we're gonna have her sing it or whatever. And I just saw her like soul like turn black, you know, and she just never sang ever since then.
Oh no.
I know. But I tried to tell her, I'm like, you know, that was just for this one occasion. So don't think this is forever. So I tried to remedy it, but I think the curse had already been put out there, you know.
Did you see the Paul Gilbert interview with Rick Beato?
Yeah.
That was my favorite Rick Beato interview.
Paul Gilbert's been through so much. He's so real now, you know.
But he was saying the reason why he got into guitar is because he felt like he wasn't that great of a singer.
Yeah.
And if you listen to some of his albums, some of like the lesser known ones, like he released one called Gilbert Motel, which only was released as like a promo for a different album.
I've never even heard that, actually.
You can find it on YouTube, but it's like he's got songs like some sound like Bach, others sound like the Beatles. It's a super fun album to listen to. Yeah, Gilbert Motel, definitely check it out. I think you'd like it. But anyway, he sings on it, and I think he's got a really great voice. But he was saying he didn't feel like he had a very good voice. But when you watch him on the interview, whenever he was playing, he's doing all these elaborate like intervals.
Yeah.
He's singing along with them.
Yeah.
And then Rick Beato said, like, you know, you're singing along.
Oh, no, my camera battery died. All right, we'll keep going with the other two cameras real quick.
I'll finish this thought,
Yeah.
and then I should probably get going.
Yeah.
I got to get up in the morning. But I loved what he said when Rick Beato was like, well, you're singing along with every lick. And he was doing it so well. And he goes, well, it keeps you honest. I was like, oh, guilty over here.
Yeah,
Like, every
I know.
lick that I play, can I sing it? No.
Yeah, but it's a good way of, like he said, the best way to improvise is to sing it first in your head and then basically transcribe it as you're singing it in your head. Ever since I knew that information, I've been able to improvise way better. But to that level, it's so cool to see him take it all the way like that. He's a master of it. Like, he could probably just sing a phrase in his brain and just play it instantly, you know?
Right.
I think the best improvisers can do that, so.
I've had melodies in my head, and I'm sitting there forever like,
I
nope.
know. It's the translation to your hand that actually creates the problem, you know? So I think that's a big thing, to be able to instantly transcribe your own thoughts. It's crazy. One time I actually wrote a song just by singing it all into Pro Tools, and then I re-figured it out on instruments later.
Oh, that's way cool. I've had my occasion where I've been like driving and I got a really cool riff and I'm like grabbing my phone and like,
We have a lot of those on my phone. Just they all sound like corn riffs for some reason. All right, the one camera died, so we're down to two. But anything you want to say?
No, that was a great conversation. Went way longer than I thought, and it actually was.
We went through this movie twice, Highway to Hell, so that's a long time.
Wow, how did it? I didn't notice you like hit play a second time.
Yeah, Lita Ford, that's the hitchhiker. That's crazy. All right, everyone, thank you for watching. Brandon Wells, your channel, Soundwell Guitar, Beastface. Anything else you want to?
No, just thanks for having me, and this,
problem.
this was a lot of fun. Not just doing it on the video, but I'm glad we got to hang out after.
We'll do this again, except it'll be like a steak restaurant.
That's fun. I don't envy the editing that you have coming up, though.
Yeah, 4 hours here. It'll be worth it.
Is that how long we've been doing it?
No, it's like 3 maybe, but
Jeez.
I'll get it down to an hour and a half, and it'll just be me talking about myself. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's going to be good. I think it's going to be very oh, that camera died now. It's going to be very expansive because we went everything from like metal to philosophy, and I like that. So
Cool.
all right, everyone. The last camera available is right there. So if you want to like scooch in, do you see it?
What?
Just wave goodbye. There you are.
There.
Bye, everyone. We'll see you at the next RIFFIN episode.